It's time. Hello everyone and welcome back to Frugal Latina. This is going to be a bit of a different one. We are going to talk about why are we budgeting? Like, I've noticed that throughout my channel, I tell you what I'm budgeting for. I tell you my goals. I told you where I came from, but I don't think I've ever told you really why I budget, because everybody's why is so different. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. So grab your coffee, grab your list. I have my laptop here because I have a board meeting here in 2 hours, but I wrote down a list because I love lists of why. So a little bit about me. I have been not great with money, like all throughout my 20s. I grew up pretty low to middle class. Sometimes we would be real good, and other times, like, we had one Christmas one Christmas, right? We had one Christmas where we couldn't even afford a tree. So those type of things and behaviors stick with you. So the type of parents I had was, my mom was a bit more frugal. My father was a little bit more, let's say, adventurous with money. So every payday he would kind of blow it, right? So that said, the reason I started budgeting was, I remember I had a breakdown in my car. I was, I think, $500 short for something, or there was some random expense that caused me to go into the negative. And I was in my car. This was before I got laid off, where ironically enough, I promised myself that I would never be broke again. And even though I lost my job 2 months later, I really do feel like I kept that promise. So I wrote out a list of why. And truthfully, I was always in the red. From the time I graduated college, I was financially basically on my own. I'm trying to make you not wobble. From the time I was out of college, I was always in the red. I always needed money, even after payday. I feel like payday came and went, but I had no budget. I had no grocery list. And worse, I think the hardest part was also that I had no car. So everything that my cat is causing mischief right now. Everything that I carried at the grocery store, I had to factor in how heavy it would be to get back to the bus. Yeah, I know. No, hang on. She's like climbing on the stuff. Good gravy. Of course, when I'm telling my story, right? Okay. So I didn't have a budget. And truthfully, I was buying a feeling. I was trying to buy my way out of feeling ishy, terrible. So I was always broke. And it got to a point where I was the broke friend. That became my identity. Whether my friends will admit it or not, that kind of became my identity, where I would be invited out for coffee, right? And I'd be like, well, I'm broke. And I didn't say this for people to cover me by any means, but at least if I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't go do it. So that's the one thing I think that sets me a little bit apart from a lot of other folks who kind of like mismanage their money, is that if I didn't have it, I didn't do it. So what changed? People started to notice, and what wasn't super helpful was people just telling me to get a budget. That is too vague. It's too vague. I am too ADHD not to have a plan, not to have something kind of figured out, not to have, whatever. And a fiduciary just felt so big. Having someone, she's gonna knock that thing over. Oh my God. Okay. I was always in the red. Being always in the red, it stinks. I'm gonna be honest with you. And having, I just put like a blanket over her because she is being a little menace right now. I've spent the whole weekend with this kitty, by the way. Okay, so that's why people were noticing I was always in the red, and I was always just saying no to things that I really wanted to say yes to. Not a good look. And I think I felt truthfully like I had outgrown this place in my life, that I needed to leave it. My why was that I really just didn't want to be broke anymore. So also in tandem with like why I started budgeting is like, let's talk about what worked. Practical budgets. Right now, what seems to be the flavor of budgeting is shame and guilt. So Caleb Hammer is another example of this. I'm not interested in getting in any sort of beef because some people like tough love. I don't. I think if tough love would have worked, it would have worked. But Caleb Hammer is another type of Dave Ramsey. Now, hear me out. I know I'm not trying to get into any kind of discourse. Dave Ramsey has decent foundation. Same with Tony Robbins. Please exercise that with caution, because there are a lot of Gen X older ideologies that worked for them. And that's fantastic, because that's where I got my start. Truthfully, all of this started was because of some Tony Robbins tapes about kind of like elevating your life. That's where it all started. But what I found worked for me was listening to Black women. The way that Black women handled their finances, the way they gave themselves grace, the way that they have budgets that worked for them, that really resonated with me. So like having a nail budget, having a hair budget, having a car budget, having a budget for your kids. In this case, it's for my kitty. Having a budget for emergency funds. But like, I feel like they did such a better job of breaking down what they did to be able to like save up money was so much more effective and resourceful than any other means of budgeting. So that said, I want to give a caution. I mean it when I say I'm here for people who are somewhere in the middle, because when I moved out of low-income housing, I was in low-income housing in Belltown, in the middle of downtown Seattle, Washington, for 7 years. And when I had finally gotten my contractor job at Google, I was panicking. I was making at the time $25 an hour. But just because you started a job that pays better does not mean you're immediately getting your paycheck as well. However, low-income housing also does audits. They do income checks, which is good because you don't want people gaming the system. But I didn't want to get kicked out when I had just gotten this job. So just to give you a reference, the apartment that I'm in now was the apartment I got after my low-income housing. That said, the amount of money I was paying when I was first at low-income housing was $420 a month. Then it jumped to $750. The rent I paid when I started living here 7 years ago was $1,400. That $700 jump is a lot. It is a lot, especially if you just started a better paying job. There's no in between. You just have to save. You just have to figure it out. But mind you, this was prior to me actually building a sustainable budget. So this is kind of like the hurdles you're going through. Just because you make more money does not mean, one, you're instantly paid. Two, that rent automatically becomes affordable, because that's not true at all. And three, my rent jumped twice during the pandemic. So I just want folks who are in either camp, who have either always been broke or have never had to want for anything. You have to understand how much red tape there is that goes between when you are making less money to when you are making more. And that's why I like to talk about like life creep when you are making more money, of just like factoring in all the things you're paying for now. And just because you have more money does not necessarily mean you need to go like blow it all, right? When I was unemployed, what I would do frequently is make, imagine I was making $50 an hour and budget that out. I don't make $50 an hour yet. I'm going to, but not yet. However, that really helped me get a frame of mind. So that way, once my biweekly checks started looking like 2K, 3K, 4K, that way I had a better idea of what am I doing with it, instead of just being starstruck that I have the most money I've ever had in my account. Because as a brown woman, as a Latina, first-gen Latina, we got to get over when we have more than $1,000 in our bank account and start being like, okay, where does this go? We got to start assigning jobs to it, because if we don't, then we're like, ooh wee, that could go over here, or that $600 can come over here. Believe me, been there, done that, Pitbull. So that is just a little bit of insight, because jumping from no dollars an hour to such and such dollars an hour, and that such and such dollars an hour starts looking more than 20, you really have to consider your future self, because that's what is going to set you up for success. Okay, that's all I got. I wanted this to be like a really quick video, but I hope that explains to you why I started budgeting. And ultimately, not only did I not want to be broke, but I really wanted to see the future that I wanted. All right, everyone. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.